We're in. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, it's great to chat to you all, like, eventually. Yeah, so my name is Patrick. I lead RAG and tool use and agents at Cohere. And yeah, I'm going to show a couple of slides, maybe like 5 minutes, and then jump into a demo of our research agent doing some stuff. Got it. So I'm going to kick off by the sort of latest thing that we released, which is, I don't know, about 3 or 4 months ago now. And I don't know, some of you may have come to a build day we hosted about 2 months ago. And I started off the talk by saying, like, I want to focus talking about citations and grounding and attribution, which is kind of like how you can build trust in what a language model is doing. Based on this tweet, which I tweeted when we released Command R and R+, which are our large language models that have the same kind of features as OpenAI, Anthropic, these kind of models. One of the things that we do that other people don't is build in this citation mechanism into our RAG and tool use behaviors, which is something I'm really passionate about. And I know that at least some people are interested because Jeremy Howard begged me to, well, not begged, suggested that I talk more about this in a public forum. And I was like, oh, I've got to do that. And when I was putting together that other talk, I was like, oh yeah, I remember he said that, and felt guilty that I hadn't done what he asked. And 2 months have now passed since then, and I still haven't done what he asked. But I'm still going to take it as read that people are interested in citations and attribution. So yeah, at Cohere, what we're building is the next generation of augmented language models for you to build things with. They can interact with external tools in complex ways. So we do a lot of search APIs. So hooking up our models to search APIs turns them into RAG models, retrieval augmented generation models. That's a buzzword that I'm sure a lot of people will be familiar with. But you can also hook them up to calculators, other APIs, code interpreters, this kind of stuff, plus custom functions. So like whatever functions you have, you can hook them up to your open API specs. And yeah, our models are capable of interacting sequentially or in a multi-step way with tools to solve complex research problems or increasingly complex research problems. And citation and verifiability are built into the heart of our technology and come for free. So our models are designed to try to attribute every fact they make when they generate a claim in their output if you use them in the tool use mode. And this is one of the things that I think is a killer feature that I want people to get more excited about. This is kind of roughly how it works. So you can kind of configure how you want the model to behave via preambles and configuring which tools you want the models to have, and hook it up to the actual implementations of those tools if you want it to flow and actually like become an autonomous agent. And the end user, which can be you as a developer or can be your user, can also input a chat history and the kind of current request that they're interested in getting a completion for. And then you feed that through, the language model will figure out which tools it wants to call from your group of tools, and then populate the API parameters from those list of tools. And you can then execute those, and then the model will look at what comes out of those tools and figure out what it should do next. It could decide to call tools again, to keep going until it's kind of accomplished the task that you've asked it to do. Or it can say, hey, I'm done now. I'm going to report to you what I've done and write a response back to you, the user. And when it does that, it will generate some natural language to you. And it will point to specific pieces of its tool output that it has used to generate certain things in its output. That's effectively what it does. I'm going to ignore that slide. But you can use it to do all sorts of interesting things. So like using this kind of paradigm, you can build all sorts of interesting stuff. General purpose chat connected to sort of web search and other APIs. You can do improved kind of private data search and private data question and answering. You can build a kind of everyday assistant for employees and customers. Data analysis as a sort of like companion to doing data analysis. The model can interact with CSVs, it can write code, it can like help you do data analysis work. You can chat with your PDFs, uploaded PDFs, and do summarization of documents, meeting transcripts, etc. Just as like a few things that you can do with this model. We want to build the sort of APIs that let you build like actual valuable products. Yeah, so I'm now going to hop over to a demo which should show how this works. And yeah, we're hopefully going to demonstrate some capabilities for this model, its ability to make a plan and perform a task over multiple steps. Can also issue several calls to APIs at once and execute them in parallel for like faster latency. It can update its plan based on how it's going. And yeah, it can use a variety of different tools and can be very useful for sort of research and analysis tasks. So yeah, should we be ambitious or should we be video? Ambitious. We're going to go ambitious. Sure, why not? Okay. So maybe first, like this is our interface. If you create an account, you can go and hang out with this interface, Cohere's chat. And yeah, there's various ways you can use it. You can use it just as a chat model, or you can use tools, and we have some implementations of tools here that you can use. We're going to use for the demo. By default, it has a Python interpreter hooked up, a calculator, and web search. For this demo, we're going to ask it something. Maybe I'll just make this bigger. And we've given it the Python interpreter and the web search. And I'd give our probabilities of success about 60%, based on the last couple of goes I've had. But if it doesn't work, we'll go to the video. Yeah, so we're going to ask this model to do some research for us. So we say, you're a brilliant financial assistant. You must write a report about the efficiency of top tech companies. Efficiency is the market cap valuation in millions of dollars contributed by each employee. Analyze the efficiency of the 5 most valuable tech companies in 2024 and write a report presenting the data and analyzing it. The report could have the following sections, but feel free to adapt it. Goals, methodology, results, including plots, graphs, tables. I'm going to say that that's optional for the model to include those. We'll see how it, see how it goes. It might include them, it might not. And the interpretation of those results, finding structural reasons, explaining the results, and a conclusion. So this is quite a complex piece of work that I'm asking the model to do. And we'll see how far we get. Okay, so we're running this with Command R+. The first thing it's doing is generating a plan of what it wants to do. I know it's whizzing by very fast and it's very small. Maybe if you grab that for a second. There we go. So effectively, the first thing it's done there, it's racing ahead of us, is that it searched on the internet for the 5 most valuable tech companies in 2024, and it found the following: Microsoft, Nvidia, Apple, Amazon, and Google. And now it's going to search for their market cap valuation and number of employees. And so it's then issued a range of parallel queries all at once. They all appeared all at once when it went a bit crazy. And after reading those, it said, I found the following data, and it started to populate this thing. So it's found out all of these values and figures from looking and reading the internet. And then it has decided it will now calculate the efficiency of each company and write the report. And you can see it's started to now use its Python interpreter. So here we go. It's generated this piece of code, and an error has occurred. So at this point, I might switch over to, this is what was happening earlier there. So there's something wrong with our Python sandbox. So we'll hop over to the video in a sec. But you can see we've got to this point now where it has effectively populated this thing, and it's trying to do that efficiency calculation and do it with a code interpreter rather than the LLM guess and probably get it wrong. So let's hop over to one we ran earlier. And it will do the same thing, roughly. And you can see it go again. It's actually quite nice to see it go again. We had a little bit of latency concern a little bit earlier on, so it's not quite as fast as it was just then. And you can see that it's doing the same generation of queries that it wants to ask for. It's slightly different each time because the temperature is not 0. And it's issued all these queries. And we're waiting for those to come back from the internet and the model to read them. I styled this out much better first time. There we go. And this time it's actually decided to tabulate them in a table rather than what it was doing before, which was listing them out. So here we go. It's writing this little markdown formatted table. Maxime scrolled up and Maxime has scrolled back down. And we're generating the results from the Python interpreter again, generating away. That will populate. And yeah, you can see that it's like written this piece of code, looks good, you can inspect it if you really care about your results and maybe spot errors and fix them and rerun, etc. And now we're waiting for the sandbox to respond. And here we go, here's the final result the model's given us. So report on the efficiency of the top 5 tech companies in 2024. It's listed the goals as we asked, it's listed methodology in terms of like how it's decided to do this piece of work. It's listing this table. We're going a bit nuts, I'm going to pause the video. It's listed this table of what it's found. You can also click download a CSV. It's done a plot, which hasn't rendered quite right in the UI, our bad. And then it's written this piece of interpretation. And a conclusion, which kind of shows that you can we're getting to the point where we can actually get the model to do some pretty complex multi-step pieces of research. And this is with Command R+, which is now about 4 months old, and the rate of progress of models both internally and externally is really impressive, and we've got internal models that are doing a little bit stronger. Here you can see some of these verification or citation things. So you'll see these little UI elements showing this. These are generated directly by the LLM itself. These aren't a post-processing thing. And you can see, okay, our plot finally arrived, which was, the code for the plot was written by the language model as well. So you can see eventually you're going to get this report. And you could also imagine, some kind of batch process producing these behind the scenes, which you could then, automate a lot of this kind of analysis, combine, etc., or make these plots ready to go. And yet you can see also things that I think are cool, like if you needed to, you could look and follow this citation, this gray thing you can see. You could hover over that, I can't because it's a video, and it would show you the specific source where it collected that piece of information from, which means that you as a user can verify the information in a much more straightforward way than you can, if you build a standard agent, or React agent, which is this kind of agent. And I think we're done there. It's a shame that the Python sandbox didn't work, but yeah, thank you. Yeah, a couple of questions over there.
Did you just demo Command R+ out of the box, or was there any setup beforehand of doing this particular research process?
That's out of the box. You can take that in the chat there. You can take that prompt and run it and log in and run it yourself, and it will work, as you said, about 60% of the time. Yeah, so that's just Command R+. You could also, the toolkit, which is effectively there's an open source version of that user interface and all of the backend that makes it, called Cohere toolkit, and you can just clone that and get it working pretty quickly yourself, rebrand, reskin, and build in whatever you want into it as well, which is quite a cool thing. Yeah.
It's great to see Citations as a first-class citizen in all of this. Do you do anything on the source reliability side before even integrating it into the LLM?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question. So some of this is things that can be done via preamble, some of it hidden preamble, there's some safety features we can turn on and off to slightly affect how that works. We train the model to mostly take things that it finds at face value and surface ambiguity, but because a lot of the use cases of this are on private information that may seem odd or out of distribution for the model, and so we basically want it to take what it sees at face value and say company internal information may conflict with things you might find out in the web or in the model's pre-training data. We'd prefer the model to default to that for that reason. But there's all kinds of really exciting kind of interfaces with safety and responsibility, etc. So we'd say that the model should trust the things it finds unless you tell them about the source that it shouldn't trust them, and that it should be transparent in where that information comes from. But yeah, that's a tough question. So we don't want to be the arbiters of truth either. So we don't want the model too much to be assessing the reliability of claims. That's as bad as potentially surfacing things that may be from an untrustworthy source. So I'd say we would prefer people or safe searches to be used rather than the language model itself to decide which sources it sees are safe or not. That's our kind of like current position on that kind of stuff, but it's really a area full of nodes. One more?
We can do one more.
Yeah, I think there was one there.
Yeah, so I used to be a strategy consultant, so I can definitely see the value this derives. My firm, no one used GPT because it couldn't trust the results. Question, so how do you balance between sort of the trade-off between, say, time, how long it takes to provide results, the cost, and the reliability? Are you always going for reliability, or are you trading off somewhere?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's different sizes of model, so that's one of the knobs that you can turn. So we have R, which is cheaper and faster, and we have R+, which is slower and better. And that's one way. There's also different like inference modes you can use that change how good the citations are. I said that the citations or the attribution, etc., was generated by the language model. That's true. Sometimes it does that as a post hoc step. Sometimes it generates with citations in line. So effectively it can like generate stuff and then insert attribution after it's generated them. That's more accurate, but takes twice as long and twice as many tokens get generated effectively. Or it can go a little bit faster and drop about 5%-ish performance on internal metrics on how well it's citing and attributing. That's like some of the ways we kind of try and do that trade-off space. Our like goals with our language model is to be very dry, at least in RAG and tool use behaviors, is to be extremely dry and non-creative. And so we're kind of like trying to like build into the model priors away from some of the more like kind of abstractive and interesting and creative things you could do with language models to more kind of like, okay, if you're hooking up to a source, we're going to assume that you really want it to trust those sources. And so it's more than just like a time latency performance trade-off. It's also a kind of like default behavior trade-off. It's tricky to get a language model to work, you know, in every, like in that kind of, this is an engaging chatbot, you know, at one extreme, and this just answers questions and never elaborates on the other side. Every language model that's out there picks a operating point on that like line, and we're quite close to, at least with the RAG and tool use behaviors, to the dry report generating, question answering side. It's a good fit for a lot of enterprise use cases, which is where we're focusing. Yeah, those are kind of like really interesting trade-offs. They're like constantly interacting with them every day.
I think we have to call it there.
We have to call it there, I'm sorry.
Come find Patrick afterwards. That was insane. Yeah.